Hey, how you doing? This is Brent down here in Houston, calling on Let's Talk About. I'm actually calling from the game, so I want to see if y'all can hear the stadium noise. Unfortunately, I came solo this week. The boys got in trouble with their mom, so she told them they couldn't come to the game. But another great experience. Enjoyed myself. My Roughneck handling their business. Keep it up the good work. Looking forward to hearing you guys' conversation this week. Thank y'all. Have a great day.
Jake Payne with the St. Louis BattleHawks, and this is the XFL Show.
Welcome, football fans. This is week 3 of the 2020 XFL season. This is For the Love of Football, and this is the XFL Show. I'm Alan.
I'm Jake.
And I'm Bryant.
What will happen when the Roughnecks fall into the Viper Pit? Can the Renegades slay the Dragons? Does DC dominate in LA? And can the Guardians brave through the Battle Dome? This is episode 115. Week 3 is here, and we have the final 2 home openers. We've got a couple teams still looking for their first win, and a couple teams already separating themselves. Some games to break down. Week 3, not quite here, Jake, but pretty close.
Yeah, closer than ever, just a couple days away. And listen, just a friendly reminder, kids, please behave yourselves, do your homework, because we want you to go to those XFL games.
Absolutely. I know I'm looking to take a couple of young cousins to the New York game next week, Jake, and I told them, you guys have a lot of tests coming up at school this week. Be on your best behavior because your mom will shut that down. You gotta work hard during the week so you could get to the weekend and the big games, Bryant. And we have some huge ones. We're going to be at one, man. St. Louis against New York, 2 1-1 teams, and the biggest home opener of the season, if you ask me.
Or you could just be like us adults and do whatever you want, like we're doing, and we're going to St. Louis to watch a football game. Did the missus hear that? I don't think the missus heard that. It's fine. Yeah, we're going to be in St. Louis for their home opener. First time professional football has played in that Battle Dome in a very long time, so I'm super excited to be there. We're going to have a lot of fun that week. And make sure your cousins are doing good because they're not going to want to miss their game either.
Absolutely not. 724-565-4XFL. You heard at the top of the show one of our callers. The XFL Fan Line is open 24/7, 365, so you could call in and give a comment, a question, and sometimes we'll play them on the air. We've got another one coming up shortly. We're going to get into game previews. We have Vince called in and gave us his picks against the spread for this week as well, for all you betting this weekend on week 3. And yes, like I said, Bryant and I will be in St. Louis, and we have some really cool news to give you here in just a second about what we'll be doing in St. Louis over the course of the weekend. We are at XFL Show on Twitter if you want to give us a follow and converse on social media. And of course, you can check the show out on XFL.com in the podcast section under the videos tab or on any podcast app of your choosing. Subscribe, rate, and review. Today, we also have a couple of guests. Good, crisp interviews with the head coach, general manager of the undefeated DC Defenders. Pep Hamilton joins us to discuss what it's been like the first 2 weeks at home for DC, what it's been like for him coaching on the sidelines, having America hear all of his play calls, and what it's like gearing up for their first road game at the LA Wildcats this weekend on Sunday evening. So Pep Hamilton's going to have a good, crisp, thorough football discussion from the coach. And then we got a player as well, Frank Alexander from the Dallas Renegades, the defensive lineman. You may have seen him last week on the field getting after Josh Johnson, but also stretching on the sidelines during an interview, Brian.
Building characters. Yeah, I saw him on the field, unfortunately, against the LA Wildcats, doing his thing. Did a great job. Then made himself memeable, I guess, with that stretching on the sideline. So, yeah, it's great to have him. A lot of insight this week on from some winning teams on going into week 3.
Absolutely, and that's coming up here shortly. But let's get into some of the news from around the league. And I think what tops it all is what we're doing in St. Louis, Bryant. We're going to be all over that town. Not only is it Mardi Gras weekend there, but it's also BattleHawks home opening weekend. The Battle Dome officially opens back up for football, professional football back in St. Louis. We said a long time ago we got to be there for this weekend. We are, and we're going to have an awesome time on Sunday, I'm sure, roaming around tailgates. But Saturday, Bryant, we are going to be at the Westport Social having an XFL watch party.
That's the best thing I think we've done so far as a show is we're gonna have a watch party with BattleHawk fans at Westport Social. It's gonna be a lot of fun. We're gonna be giving away some cool merch, so kind of stick around there and come and join us and watch a football game. Get excited for Sunday because Sunday's your big day, but there's still a lot of great football happening beforehand. So on Saturday, Westport Social, located at 910 Westport Plaza Drive.
We're going to be at Westport Social on Saturday. The game starts at 1 p.m. We'll be watching that Tampa Bay-Houston game. And that's what's awesome is that, of course, the game is on Sunday, the BattleHawks debut. But if you've got that itch, if you just want to be around some BattleHawks so you could come hang out with us, we will be, like Brian said, giving away some cool XFL prizes. And we'll be recording our game recap podcast right there at Westport Social. And who knows, we're pretty open. We're interested in hearing from you BattleHawks fans. If you want to caw on the show, we might interview and talk to some BattleHawks fans. Bryant, I know you'll love to do that as a Wildcats fan.
That'll be a lot of fun. We haven't had really too many fans on this show other than ourselves, so it'll be great to get that perspective. So come and join us. It'll be a lot of fun. Come watch some football. Hang out with us for a little bit. So we're saying they can caw on our podcast.
Yes, I want to break the world record for the amount of cacaws on one podcast.
What's the record right now?
I think it's around like somewhere.
It doesn't matter because we're gonna break it.
We're gonna break it. It's at about
Saturday.
like 67 to 70. I think it's like 68, 69-ish right now, Jake. We're gonna crush that on Saturday at Westport Social. All the BattleHawks fans that are going to show up there are going to caw. We're going to watch some XFL football, get everybody ready for Sunday's kickoff at the Battle Dome. And then Bryant and I will be having more fun there. And we're going to be, filming stuff for social media, more podcasting, getting fans involved. That's what the league's all about, allowing us fans to interact and enjoy football together. And we're going to be doing that in St. Louis this weekend. Cannot freaking wait, baby. BattleHawks and Guardians, of course, the game of the week as far as I'm concerned. Although I'm not going to give it my dreaded. I'm not doing anymore. This is going to be the best game anymore, Jake, because I've done that 2 weeks in a row, and the game I've pegged as the best game has ended up being, I think, the biggest margin of victory in the first 2 weeks. So I'm not going to say that for any game this week.
Oh, yeah, last week the Guardians didn't show up as much as you thought they were, and at least the states of New York and New Jersey. So hopefully the picks are going to be a little more exciting this week.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to put that dreaded stamp on anything, but I'm going to have my scores. I know Vince gave his scores. I'm interested, as always, in hearing who you're picking, Jake, and I cannot wait to see what Bryant has for that St. Louis, New York game. Would he dare pick against the BattleHawks in their home opener? We'll find out in just a little bit.
If he's on site, he won't do it since he's on site. I'll tell you that right now.
That's fair enough. Yeah, you're right. Okay. I can skip that game. I'm going to be there, so maybe I should pull like a Kirk Herbstreit and not give his.
You are not Kirk Herbstreit
for those games. I'm just saying, when he's at the games, he doesn't give his pick for the games. I think that's fair.
No, I want your pick, so you give me your pick. And you just remember this. It's the law to caw this weekend in St. Louis for the BattleHawks and the Guardians. All right, we'll get to picking later. Let's get into some transaction news as we dink and dunk around the league. And it's some very interesting stuff here. First up, Eric Dungy back with the Renegades after taking some time off for family issues. So Brogan Roback was picked up last week as a emergency quarterback, essentially. He's been waived with Dungy back on the team now behind Philip Nelson, who is behind Landry Jones. Then the interesting stuff here, Tampa Bay with all sorts of moves. They cut wide receiver Shontavious Jones, who I believe Bryant was a pretty high up their draft pick for them back in October. And the thing is, they acquired a pretty well-respected wide receiver in S.J. Green, a CFL star. I mean, we're talking about over 10,000 yards up there in Canada, playing in that league, winning Grey Cups, playing for Mark Trestman, now joins the Tampa Bay Vipers in a trade that they made with Seattle. Linebacker Corey Toomer goes to Seattle in exchange for S.J. Green. A reunion, another CFL reunion for Mark Trestman. Those haven't panned out for him yet. Is a wide receiver what the Tampa Bay Vipers actually need here, Jake?
They probably need more consistent quarterback play is what they need. But you're talking about a receiver, like we said, had 10,000 yards Canadian up there in the CFL.
That was like a verbal asterisk you put on that. It's impressive.
A Canadian yard is slightly longer than an American yard. I mean, just look at the field.
It is a bigger field.
There's 110 of them up there.
It is a bigger field, but S.J. Green's a pretty good player. Interested to see what he does with the Vipers, but I mean, they got to get him the ball, and they got to get him the ball in the red zone, Bryant. This team has probably the toughest task of anybody, taking on Houston at home. I know a lot of people are on the D.C. Defenders going to L.A. I think that's a tougher matchup for the D.C. team than what Houston's got. Tampa Bay with a lot on the line, and they pick up a receiver, though. Can't wait to see him out there. We'll get to picking that game and talking about the quarterback situation in a moment, but the S.J. Green, do you put an asterisk on S.J. Green there, Bryant? Are you like Jake?
Well, I guess is the conversion for yardage at an all-time high for Canadians right now? Because I mean, maybe that's why he waited so long to cash in. I guess that's what we're talking about right now.
Depends on the market.
Well, the market right now for CFL players is pretty strong because the rumors are swirling with their free agency underway. Talented players from the Canadian Football League rumored to be coming to the XFL. We've heard the name Armani Edwards thrown out there. Not 100% officially announced yet that he's on Team 9 or available for a team to pick up just yet, as well as Derek Dennis, a great offensive lineman who was like the league's highest paid offensive lineman at one point up in the CFL. Those are two quality players among other quality players that the XFL definitely could use from the CFL. I've always advocated for that league, Bryant, and I would be happy to see some of those players join these teams in the XFL.
It would be good, and if some of those players can make a difference on an XFL team, I think that's a great addition. Again, the XFL has to be worried about, removing players that have been there since day one to bring in these talents now. You want that continuity. You want players to feel secure when they're on an XFL squad. But Alan, to answer your question from earlier about the Tampa Bay Vipers signing S.J. Green, is this what they need? They need a closer. We've talked about it. 0 for 7 in the red zone, 0 for 10 within their opponent's 30-yard line. They need someone who can catch the ball and finish and score some touchdowns. Still no offensive touchdowns this season, so Tampa Bay, hopefully with this, can get that end zone this weekend.
All right, maybe you guys know this, but we're talking about some CFL stars coming over or potentially coming over. It's not like the Grey Cup was last week. Do you know why some of these players were not there for week 1?
Oh, because CFL free agency didn't start until, I believe, February 11. So those,
okay, so they were locked down.
Contracts, yeah, business, okay. The business end there, Jake. So yeah, now these players are free to make that jump, and we'll see which of them do. Like S.J. Green, I think that's a really cool story. Mark Trestman, just like Bob Stoops, I think having a lot of guys he's familiar with. It's I think panned out for Stoops so far, having guys he's familiar with, like Frank Alexander, who we're going to talk to a little bit later on in the show from Oklahoma. But Trestman, with all of his CFL connections, they're putting up, I think, CFL-type offensive numbers, but just not in the points category. What a game that is going to be, the first game of the weekend, just in terms of interest, and I think what's on the line in that one for the Tampa Bay Vipers, a team we're probably going to be talking about a whole lot more throughout the course of this episode. But let's go to the Houston Roughnecks now, who have the star of the week, the second ever Week 2 star of the week. Cam Phillips wins the award with his 8 catches for 63 yards and not 1, not 2, but 3 TDs in Houston's 28-24 victory over the St. Louis BattleHawks last week. Great game for him. That was who I voted for in the Twitter poll. We talked about that last show, Bryant. It was well-deserved, but it was also a week where there was a lot of good performances. I thought his stood out, though. Anytime you're a receiver scoring 3 touchdowns, give it to him.
Yeah, and the reason I didn't give it to him was because of his celebrations and his like post touchdown antics a little bit.
So
Because I wasn't a huge fan of it, but
fun police here, Bryant.
That took away from the
well,
star
I'm not
rating,
fun
you're
police,
saying.
but when you get a flag on it, you're not supposed to do it. I mean, Jake, you can attest to that, right? You saw his celebrations. You're taking off your helmet, having some fun. You're not allowed to do that. So I can ding you for doing something you're not supposed to do.
If it's going to penalize the team, I agree with you in this scenario.
Well,
thank you very much. So that's the reason I didn't vote for him. But yes, a great performance nonetheless. I still like Jordan Ta'amu's performance. 4 touchdowns accounted for, 1 on the ground, 3 in the air. I think that man, I didn't give him enough credit before the season starts. So I'm going to try to give him as much credit as I can now that we're in the season. I think he was a close second, if not probably the winner if he had won that game.
First prediction of the show. Who you got as star of the week for week 3? Who you think it's going to be, Bryant?
Oh, it's so not fair because you didn't even tell us that this question was happening. I'm gonna go. Oh man, I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna go with Parham, tight end, Dallas, out of Stetson, Florida.
I like it. I can't wait to have him on the show one day to ask him about Stetson. That's a solid pick. Landry Jones throws him the football a whole lot. What about you, Jake?
It's the big home opener for this team. It's going to be rocking. It's going to be cacaing. I'm going to go with what Brian thought should have been last week's star, and that's Jordan Ta'amu.
All right. I like both of those are solid picks. I'm going to go with our guest who's going to be coming up in a little bit, Frank Alexander.
Pep Hamilton? Oh.
Yeah, actually, I mean, getting to watch the coaches, I mean, we should give a coach of the week as well. I'm going Frank Alexander, defensive. So we're going to give him that that good luck charm going into the game against Seattle. I'm calling it. The big man's going to have a touchdown for the Dallas Renegades defensively. I'm going out on a limb on that one. We shall see. But for now, the star of the week is Cam Phillips of the Houston Roughnecks. Houston Roughnecks, number 1. Real quick, just a programming note for stuff you should probably watch if you're an XFL fan and interested in, just being entertained by what this league's offering. They're putting out some cool stuff that we talked about, this documentary that was being made, and it's actually out already. The Road to Kickoff documentary put together by the same people who put together Hard Knocks on HBO. I don't know if you saw this, Jake, this Road to Kickoff doc. It was all about that hype for the DC-Seattle game, the first game of the XFL season. I thought it was a really cool look that captured just how intense that was for the players going into the first kickoff, the build-up to it all. I thought it was tremendous. It looked cool. It's on XFL.com if anybody hasn't seen it. I watched it, and I was at that game, and it made me relive all those feelings I had.
Yeah, I watched it just about an hour ago. It was a quick watch, about 15 minutes. It didn't go too deep into how this league restarted or why this league restarted, but you did get a little bit back at what it appeared to be Stanford HQ, and then we saw both teams.
A lot of the players. It was a lot of the players it focused on after that early part. Yeah.
Yeah. That wasn't that long, and then a lot of kind of sideline access for the game. What was going on in the locker room at halftime, even more than what you got to see on the ABC, I believe, broadcast that day.
Yeah, I like seeing just how some players kind of took the leadership role early on in the season. You saw guys hyping their brothers up because we know that what they went through in mini camps and training camps to get to that game too, Bryant. That was what I thought was really cool, seeing like Steven Johnson hyping up, talking about breathing fire to all the Seattle Dragons before that game was really cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. Inside that whole, kind of leading up, it was just the one game, but it was still pretty awesome to see and to get that perspective. I know you guys were at that game, so you probably saw a perspective that I didn't get to witness from that game. So this is just something that fans can kind of enjoy. Hopefully they do these more and more for other games, but the XFL giving fans access quickly, and it's a lot of fun to get to see these things that you really don't get to see on a weekly basis from the NFL.
Oh, for sure. And then you got even more stuff like bite-size videos like the one they did with the center for the LA Wildcats, Patrick Vahe, who, I mean, we met Brian. He is a really funny guy, really personable, and they capture that too. They've got this new video they're doing, the Inside the Trenches, which is also up on XFL.com. I love these. I'm looking forward to more of these, just kind of close looks at certain players on teams, and Patrick Vahe and those LA offensive linemen have a unique bond already, and they're characters. And also, I would say some of the most violent players in the league. Have you seen Storm Norton and Fred Laulina so far? Storm Norton, honestly, if LA wasn't winless, I might nominate as MVP of this league just based on the pancakes he's been making on the field.
Storm Norton, when I was on the field watching him play, because I got to stand on the field for a little bit during the game, it looked like somebody drove up a Chevy Silverado onto the field and just started plowing through the Dallas Renegades. I mean, that's how big this man looks.
Yeah,
and he's
like
just
a rock.
He's picking up bodies as he's rolling. Yes, like a rock. He's amazing. I love watching that man play football. If you get a chance, watch him, kind of focus on him on some of these plays, especially these screen plays that they run to his side. It's a lot of fun to see him play football.
Play in football is when you get any lineman, especially Storm Norton, out in front of a running back or a receiver, running downhill looking for someone to block and pancake. And he's done it multiple times already. It's why I love Norm Chow. He loves doing that. I can't wait to see more of it. We'll see if they do it to the DC Defenders. I'm sure Pep Hamilton doesn't want to see that, and we're going to talk to him in just a second. But let's hear from you, the XFL fans. We're fans who get to blab every week on the podcast, but we want to hear from the other fans as well, and that's why we have the XFL Fan Line at 724-565-4XFL. And each week, whenever you call in, we're going to pick out some of our favorites from the voicemails, from the inbox, and sometimes you ask us a question, sometimes you give us a comment, and we like hearing it, and then we like playing it on the show so everyone else could hear it for their amusement. And sometimes you're really informational because a lot of you are super smart football fans, like John.
Hey, guys, this is John down in Houston. I just wanted to say what a great game that was on Sunday evening. Love watching the Roughnecks play. Week one, they really proved that they could put the pedal down and blow a team out. Week two, they proved that when adversity hits, they can gut out a win with clutch plays on offense and defense. And, my big takeaway is imagine how dangerous this offense is going to be if Sammy Coates actually starts catching the ball. So that's it. Love the XFL so far. Love the Roughnecks. Go Roughnecks.
All right. I love John's analysis of what the Roughnecks have done so far. Although the jab at Sammy Coates, Jake, I don't know if that was warranted, but it kind of was true.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a point there. And we also want to say thank you for everybody calling into the XFL Fan Line. We just had so many calls this week where we can only play a limited number of them, but keep them coming.
Well, a lot of them are topics that we just get to talk about, too. You guys give us a lot of ideas, so it's a lot of fun, especially on social media, Alan, too. I will say that somebody, we kind of lose sight sometimes, and I'll admit it, that we've been on this road for so long that, a lot of these things in the XFL are kind of just natural to us. But there's a lot of new people here as well, and a lot of people asking questions, wondering, because of what they're used to in the NFL or in Major League Baseball. They ask questions that I think it's kind of important to actually answer every once in a while. So somebody here on Twitter asked, it was actually Twisted_Sailor on Twitter, XFL Show, do bigger market teams have a larger salary cap like the NFL? If not, how is a team's budget determined? And I think it's a simple answer, but to us, but maybe to somebody who hasn't been paying attention since the very beginning, doesn't know. The answer is Vince McMahon owns all 8 teams. The league owns all 8 teams. They're all kind of on the same playing surface for right now, at least this season. No owners, no marketing, no budgeting. Everybody kind of has the same budget going into this inaugural season. So thanks for the question. I appreciate, and if anybody has those types of questions, we're here to answer them for you because we've been here for a long time, but we know that there's a lot of people new that are on this journey with us now, and a lot of these questions have to get answered.
Absolutely. We'll get into the weeds, and if somebody needs to get up for some air to just make sure that they're, they can adjust themselves and get their equilibrium and understand everything going on with the league, because there's a lot of new stuff like that, that people might not know just yet or forgot or, need reminders, whatever. That's what we're here for, and we appreciate those questions, whether they're on the XFL Fan Line or at XFL Show for certain. All right, you guys ready to hear from Pep Hamilton?
Let's hear.
Fast.
Yes, very fast.
Thank you.
He is,
trust me,
the head coach of the undefeated DC Defenders, and he joined me earlier this week to discuss what it's been like so far as a head coach in the XFL, having the entire world hear him call plays, and what he's doing this week as his team gets ready to travel to take on the hungry and winless LA Wildcats. A good, crisp interview here with Pep Hamilton of the DC Defenders. You're 2-0. The world's hearing every play call of yours, but you had 2 awesome home games. How's it been the first 2 weeks as a head coach in the XFL?
You know, it's been good. It's been really good for our football team. We've found ways to win games. We all respect and understand how tough it is to beat another football team, to really come out on the winning end of any football game, especially when you consider that you're competing against some of the best football players and best coaches in the world. So we're excited.
Oh, absolutely. And you had 2 exciting games there at home. Talk a little bit about your crowd there in DC. They came out pretty much in full force the past 2 weeks. You guys got to go on the road this weekend, but so far the home cooking's been nice.
Well, we greatly appreciate the enthusiasm that our fans have brought to Aldi Field. As I mentioned, I think last week, you know, our defensive guys in particular, they're an emotional bunch. They feed off of the energy that we get from our fans, and not to say that the offense doesn't, but defensively, our guys are totally tuned in and tied into just the energy that we get from the fan base. Our games, our home games at Aldi Field have been arguably the best. It's been the best football atmosphere in the XFL. That's just one man's opinion, but it's all as a result and due to the fact that the fans have been so supportive.
Oh, absolutely. I was there week 1. It was a tremendous atmosphere, and on TV it was thunderous when Jameer Thurman had that pick 6, Coach. It was awesome to see. Let's talk real quick about the access. I mean, we get to hear you coaching as fans on TV, hear your play calls, hear you talking to your guys. Does that require a lot of week-to-week change in your communication plan?
Well, from week 1 to week 2, we had to make some updates, but for the most part, the players on the field, in particular the opponent's defense, they're going to hear what they would hear under any circumstance, as far as the quarterback making certain calls and the offensive line making certain adjustments at the line of scrimmage. I do think that when you watch the broadcast after the fact, you can gain some intel on what terminology we're using and what some of the terms could possibly mean, but for the most part, it doesn't require wholesale changes. But just like you would under normal circumstances, we do have to make updates on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah, and you guys you got to get ready like you normally do for any football game. And well, I'm going to shoot this at you, Coach. You could shoot it down. This is my co-host came up with this. We were talking about how well you guys handled the New York Guardians offense this past weekend, and my co-host Bryant coined the phrase "pepperation." Do you want us to put that on a T-shirt?
You know, I don't know if that's necessary. I do think that without a doubt, our players have played fast, and they've affected the other team's quarterbacks, and more importantly, they've taken the ball away. But I do think that's a testament to not just the players that are making those plays, but our defensive staff, led by our defensive coordinator, Louis Chofie. I think our scheme and what we do specifically attacks the pass protections and just really the rules of what we see on film from our offensive opponents. So they've done an outstanding job of putting together a plan to put our playmakers in a position to be successful, and our pass rushers and linebackers and secondary guys, they made the most of those opportunities, and they made some big plays for us on defense.
Yeah, you guys have had some big defensive plays. Your special teams have been pretty solid as well. And, of course, everyone's talking about Cardale and the offense. You guys have a complete package there in D.C., but now this is your first road test going across the country to take on the LA Wildcats. What kind of special challenges do they present to you guys this weekend? 0-2 bunch looking for their first win.
Well, I think when you look at this team on film, they're one of the more talented teams in the XFL. They play hard. They're aggressive on both sides of the ball and on special teams. And they're just waiting for the ball to bounce their way. So we have to make sure that we execute at a high level and we play tough, smart defender football. And because we'll have our hands full trying to beat a team that's dying for an opportunity to get in the win column. And so it'll be a hard-fought game, and we respect the heck out of Coach Winston and Coach Chow and what they do schematically, and we know it'll be a good game.
Cannot wait to see that one, Coach. I do have to ask you, as a coach, we get to watch you. I mean, this is fans. We talked about this past show we just did. This is unlike anything we've seen. We get to watch a game for the coaching now. We get to see you in your element, talking to your guys, telling Rashad Ross to get on his horse. America sees that. I mean, we saw you were in a zone play calling. As a coach, does it make it easier to play call and to just get everybody on the same page, having that direct communication with your wide receivers and your quarterback?
Well, I think it's very helpful with regards to allowing guys to play fast, because you can just give them some confirmation of what it is that they're to do on any given play. Rashad, in particular, is someone that we traded for during our training camp, and so he was still getting acclimated to our system as recently as this past weekend. Just there's certain terms and certain things that he's hearing that even though he studied it and he may have sat through the installs with the rest of our guys going into the game, but there's still some reminders that we can and reminder points that we can give him that can help him to just have the assurance that he's doing the right thing and allow him to do it fast. So that's one of the great things about the technology that we're using in the XFL. It really helps the quality of play when you consider that we could communicate with our guys up until the ball is snapped.
It's really fun to watch you out there, Coach. I mean, usually we see you, then we got to have the announcers interpreting what they think you're saying, but now we hear directly from you. You're entertaining us as fans, especially because your team's playing good football, and we look forward to you and the Defenders taking on the LA Wildcats this Sunday. We always appreciate it, Pep.
All right, thanks a bunch. Go Defenders.
Thanks to the DC Defenders and Coach Pep Hamilton for hooking us up with that interview. I can't wait to see what he's telling his receivers this week and which defensive backs of the LA Wildcats he's going to try to pick on, because he was doing that a whole lot against New York, picking on some of their guys, seeing who was winded,
tired,
gassed. He's tired. He's blown up. Pep Hamilton.
Get on your horse, Rashad. Come on.
Oh, man. Pep is right now my favorite coach to watch coach in the XFL, not just because he's been on the show twice, Bryant. Legitimately entertaining and informative to watch.
He's a lot of fun, and just kind of to see his mind and progression and his preparation, like we mentioned, for these games. It's a lot of fun.
What'd you think of that? The preparation. I threw that at him. He said you don't have to put it on a shirt, right? But I don't know. Do you think he's going to stick with it? Do you think he's going to roll with that one?
I think he's just a humble man who's not going to take credit for what he's doing, right? He's going to take this and say it's not just a preparation, it's a preparation of the entire team, and he doesn't want to take the glory, which is a sign of a good coach. This man is putting himself out there for everyone to see, and this could go south. If you really think about it, this can go south for any coach. They could look like a fool. They could look like a horrible coach, and Pep puts himself out there and is actually looking like a great coach with all of his communication with his players, his play calling. I think it's one of the fascinating things to see. And I hope this week with the LA game that he's mic'd up as well again. Absolutely.
When we get that picture-in-picture of him and Winston Moss, that is must-see TV on Sunday for the DC at LA game at 6 p.m. Eastern on FS1. Let's now take it over to important questions we have to ask about some of these teams facing dire straits. 0-3 would be absolutely disastrous if you ask me for LA or Tampa Bay. Let's discuss in this week's Cover 2.
You got to get on your horse now, Rashad.
Get on our horse and ride. We have, LA and Tampa Bay. 2 0-2 teams, Two teams I think that are better than 0-2, Bryant. I don't know about you. I don't think Tampa's as bad as they've shown record-wise, and LA the same. But they're both behind the 8 ball. That's the fact. New York also I throw in there. I don't know about you guys, but they were embarrassed last week and looked anemic on offense. And then that performance really shone a light on what they did in week 1 and how that might have been masked by some good defense. So with week 3 here, LA facing 0-3 against DC at home, Tampa Bay facing 0-3 against Houston at home, and then New York going into the Battle Dome facing a potential 1-2 start. Which team needs the W the most in week 3?
The most, it's so hard to tell, right? Because it's a 10-week season. Going 0-3, you're basically kind of writing your story. You would have to not run the table, but basically go 6-1 the rest of the season.
Season's almost half over.
Yeah. So, but if I had to kind of put an emphasis on it, Tampa Bay is. I said this last week because Jake, you said LA was playing a must-win game in LA, and I never said it was a must-win. It was a must-change, and I think that's what Tampa has to do. Tampa has to have a must-change game. They need to score. They need to be different. They need to be better. I think New York is still a little soft in the East, so they might be able to catch up to them. And there's still some question marks on St. Louis. They didn't look great first week. They looked a lot better this past week, but they still lost. So I think it's more of a attainable goal to still reach the playoffs, even if they don't win this week. LA needs to win because they've looked like a good team, and if they can't win, then there's some other problems there that need to get addressed. So I'm going to put it on LA to not go 0-3 because they need some. Now, I still don't want to use the phrase must win, but this is definitely one of those games that if they don't win, you're starting to think what's wrong with this team because they should be good enough to win some football games.
Well, I mean, they have put points on the board. That's something that we can't speak in the same vein for Tampa Bay. Sure, they've got field goals and points to other methods, but like you were saying earlier, no offensive touchdowns.
None. No offensive touchdowns, but really some of the best offense we've seen in terms of moving the ball. It is the biggest anomaly in the XFL.
They're in that red zone, but like we said, it's just missed opportunities and just some. I think you got to call it bad decisions. You can't try to sugarcoat it.
So are you saying Tampa needs this W the most then, Jake?
I mean, it's New York. It's not like the New York fans to hold a grudge, and they're at home next week, so they're going to be just fine. I'm not concerned with that. They're going to at least put some type of points on the board, even though they're going into that Battle Dome this week. I think it might be LA, but that's another tall task without Cardale Jones coming in town. But LA, they've showed us they can put points on the board. They can be close if they have to. Tampa really has not shown us that yet.
A
lot of potential, a ton of potential. Like we said, it's just, don't throw that ball or throw it at the back corner of the end zone where if somebody's going to get it, only your man can. Don't throw it too short.
I'm going to defer from you guys here. I'm going with Tampa needs this one more than anybody. I mean, New York is in some trouble, I think. They are going into a no-win situation. I'm saying this, BattleHawks can hold this against me if something goes wrong, but I think their gooses cooked the Guardians going into the Battle Dome. But that's why I don't think it's a must-win. We've expected them to lose this game, even when it was just this game got booked for week 3. But for Tampa to be 0-2, they're facing Houston. The toughest matchup, I think, for any team this week, even the Guardians at the Battle Dome. But Tampa Bay, I think, needs this because what I think the BattleHawks can do. I think the DC Defenders are the class of the East, and they're going to continue. Pep Hamilton is just too damn good, if you ask me. And the BattleHawks, I think this offense by the end of the season, contrary to what Vince might tell you guys, I think this might end up being the best offense by the end of the season with all the different things they could do and having a quarterback who can tuck it and run for huge chunks in Jordan Ta'amu. I think the BattleHawks have something special, and they're just developing and growing. So if the Vipers go down 0-3, knowing that St. Louis is getting off to a pretty decent start, knowing that DC is pedal to the metal the entire season. That is a huge hole. As for LA, I think in rematches with Dallas and Houston even, LA has a chance at competing with Houston. I think LA can beat Dallas. I think they showed that last week. They were just a couple bad mistakes away. And I think they need this win, obviously, at home. But I think it's way, way more important for Tampa Bay in terms of the grand scheme of the season and the big hole, that Viper Pit hole they could just fall into, get trapped in, and never get out of. That could happen with a loss in Week 3 to Houston. And that is no easy task. You're talking about big play P.J. Walker coming into the Viper Pit. We'll see what kind of crowd shows up. We'll see what kind of support the Tampa Bay Vipers have. But they are my pick. And Guardians, well, I said their goose is cooked. But here's part 2 of our cover 2, Jake. They do have a pretty rad mascot. At the end of the day, their quarterback might throw people under the bus. They might have an embarrassing loss on their record to the DC Defenders, but they have a cool gargoyle that's 7 feet tall, made of stone, lurking there at MetLife Stadium. And now they were trying to find a name for it. If you went on to the Football Advisory Network, footballadvisorynetwork.com, Fan, if you're a real XFL fanatic and you go to Fan where all of us other football freaks are talking XFL all the time, there was a poll out to name the Guardians mascot. What did you name the Guardians mascot, Jake?
Well, yeah, this is an imposing figure. You mentioned his height, and you can't teach that. But there were a number of names I was trying to think of. I was thinking, should we go with something menacing, like Damien or Lucifer, or something maybe a little more friendly, like Matilda or Frankie.
Ooh.
But what I ended up submitting was Pepe. I think it really captures the stone gargoyle.
Pepe the stone gargoyle?
Pepe,
oh,
yes.
No. I can't.
Alan, did you see the gargoyle? You took a picture with it, right?
Yes.
Was the gargoyle firm or was it a little soft?
No, it's chiseled out of stone. That thing is
It's like a stone pit bull, but it was a stone gargoyle.
Stone gargoyle. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. And I like that it, breathes smoke. Perch it real high atop the city. It'll protect everybody. It's a guardian. I named it Goliath, obviously after the totally awesome and rad 90s cartoon Gargoyles, and the main character on that was Goliath. And Goliath the Guardian is some fine alliteration, if you ask me, Bryant. But I don't know. What do you have?
Goliath would have been good. I would have named it, if I named it Goliath, it would have been after this awesome roller coaster out here by Six Flags Magic Mountain, Valencia. Steepest freestanding roller coaster in the world.
What is this? What do you work for Magic Mountain? What did you name the gargoyle?
It would work for Six Flags, let me imagine. I'm not a big gargoyle guy. I don't really know. I mean, could you just kind of do something like, could you say Frank? How does that sound?
I like Goliath. I don't know what one.
Sebastian?
We'll see. Sebastian's pretty cool. I like that. That's better. But Goliath is the best.
Okay.
So I'm encouraging anyone naming the Guardian, if you're a Guardians fan, go with Goliath. That's what I'm voting for. But we'll see what it ends up getting called. It'll be the first named mascot as far as I know. Francisco. The first named mascot, I believe, in the XFL, Jake. I don't think they've named one anywhere else. And obviously, I think the easiest one here, Jake, would be for Tampa to name their mascot Randy.
Yeah. I think that's the best way to go.
The Guardians, you could check that out on footballadvisorynetwork.com. Just some fun stuff during the week as an XFL fan. Hey, how about a bonus piece here for the cover 2? Some fantasy football for you. Just an update in case you did not see who DraftKings is ranking as the top plays this week at each position. We'll run through them. I haven't dipped my toe into any of this yet. Probably won't, Jake. I don't know about you if you're ever going to, finally play some fantasy football. But in case this is the week for you, just know that P.J. Walker is the tops of the quarterback rankings as he goes to Tampa Bay at $11,500 according to DraftKings. Jordan Ta'amu is the second best play according to DK. And then Landry Jones, Cardell Jones, and Josh Johnson against DC. I got to tell you guys, I think Josh Johnson's going to have a pretty decent week against the DC Defenders, Bryant. Would you be surprised?
I will not. We'll get into that a little bit here when we start predicting games. I think Cardell Jones might be a little too expensive. LA is not really giving quarterbacks, although the yardage has been there, the scoring really hasn't. PJ Walker did kind of just prove me wrong on that one now that I think about it. But last week, Landry Jones didn't look good in terms of accuracy and touchdowns. The yardage was there, so just kind of be careful on that one. To me, the best buy on here is Jordan Ta'amu, because not only are you going to get the quarterback stats, he's running the football. He's the third leading rusher in the league right now.
What about this? Speaking of rushers, running back rankings, you got 2 Tampa Bay Vipers on there, De'Veon Smith and Jacques Patrick. Who scores the first touchdown for the Vipers if it's one of those two? Who you got, Jake?
I mean, somebody's going to score a touchdown this week. I think it's a 50-50, but I'll just go with Patrick.
He was the one trucking some guys, so I'm thinking if you're on the goal line, 230, 40-pounder might be a good bet there. Coach Trestman, if you want to maybe give him the rock down inside the goal line, that would make sense.
Maybe you take it out of a position's hands where they've been known to throw some errant passes whenever you're in that area of the field.
And then for the wide receivers, Cam Phillips is tops. Can he repeat that performance? Yardage-wise, didn't do a lot, Bryant, but he made those big plays. Can the Roughnecks continue to just rely on the big play, scoring, and maybe not racking up a whole lot of time of possession or yardage that way? Or do you think they need to be more controlling and have a giant game from a Cam Phillips or a Sammy Coates maybe if he catches the ball?
Again, we'll go into this when we talk about our predictions here in a little bit, but I think the way the Houston Roughnecks won their last game and the way they played that second half, I think it's going to be important for them to be able to control that football and get these longer drives together, and they can't be so dependent on these shorter drives, time-wise and yardage-wise. So, yeah, it was great for Cam Phillips to get that all those touchdowns, but I don't know if that's going to be as likely, even with Tampa hosting them this week. I almost want to stay away from him with the price tag that he has. Spruce is a good buy as well, but yeah, I'm worried about the Cam Phillips purchase price because of how high he was this past week on those 3 touchdowns.
I'm all about Keenan Reynolds and Austin Proehl, baby. Those are if I was playing this week, I like them. Saw Dallas gave up some big plays down the field. Saw that Brandon Silvers, although not accurate during a lot of the game, is able to find those guys at least once or twice per game in the last 2. So I like those if I was playing, but we shall see. And those are your fantasy picks, just some chatter from us who don't focus too much on the fantasy end of stuff. But the cool thing is you could play it on DraftKings, FanDuel, and they have all that stuff on XFL.com with the rankings and maybe your best plays. It's all right there. Really cool to check out if you're looking to play some fantasy in week number 3. I'm looking to see some defensive touchdowns continue in this league, though. We've had a plethora of them in week 1 and week 2, and I'm thinking more in week 3. And hopefully from our next guest, Jake, Frank Alexander was getting a stretch on against the LA Wildcats. He had a great game in week number 1 as well against the St. Louis BattleHawks in a losing effort, and he's one of the leaders on that defense. He's going to join us here for a good, crisp interview. I have to tell you, though, Jake, I wasn't able to get any of his stretching techniques, any yoga tips from him for you. I know you were hoping I would, but we didn't have enough time. We had to talk strictly football.
Well, that's probably something he doesn't want to let leak to the other teams in the league as well. So I respect that.
Who knows? Maybe he'll give away some tips live on an interview on the sideline this week. He's one of the coolest personalities in the XFL so far. Real fun interview, and he's right here on This is the XFL Show. Oklahoma Sooner, now Dallas Renegades, defensive lineman number 57. He is Frank Alexander. How are you enjoying suiting up, being a Dallas Renegade so far?
I'm enjoying it, man. It's an awesome opportunity, and I'm, just appreciate it, bro. I just thank Coach Stoops and the organization, man.
How cool is it to play for Coach Stoops in the XFL? A lot of familiar faces, I'm sure, around the team for you. And also, a pretty cool system you get to play in Dallas. You guys are doing some unique things on the field.
Oh, yeah, man. It's definitely a good opportunity, man, and a great feeling, when you get to come back and reunite with one of your your old college coaches and stuff. And I remember Coach Stoops came and got me in 2007, and he back around and come back. In 2019, we done hooked back up. So, man, it's an awesome feeling. So, I'm just thankful to him for believing in me and giving me that opportunity.
Yep, and then last week you guys pull out your first win, beating the LA Wildcats on the road, and it was a pretty exciting game. The fourth quarter got really interesting. That pace of the play clock, man, that's pretty fast. The offenses in this league are moving pretty quickly. How's that affect you as a defensive player?
We got to just prepare for it, man. You just got to be ready for whatever they throw at you. And we do a great job of going against the high tempo offense during the week. So, we know it's going to be that. So, you just got to condition yourself and be ready to go when it's time to go.
And you were last week. We caught you. One of my favorite moments of the XFL weekend. You got the sideline interview while you were getting your stretch in. You're making sure you were limber. Do you enjoy all that access that they're giving fans? You enjoy the cameras on the field and on the sidelines?
Oh yeah, I think it's a great deal, because it gives you another opportunity to connect with fans, and the fans get a feel for who you are, outside of just being an athlete or football player or whatnot. They actually get to kind of see your personality. So I think it's a great deal.
I love it, and I played in high school. I was a defensive lineman. All we worried about, was what was my sack dance going to be. But now you get to do that, and you get to worry about kind of, what am I going to say to the camera if it comes to me? Any guys in the locker room in there saying, yeah, when they come to me, I'm going to be doing this. Is anybody plotting and planning, or are you guys kind of just waiting for the moment and reading and reacting?
You never know when it's going to come, but I guess that's the beauty of it. It's after you make a big play or something like that, or I guess if you gave up a play, they can come talk to you. So that's the deal. You never know. So you just kind of going, as you go, you just at the moment, you just kind of feeling it and you letting things flow out as they come, but you on live TV, so you got to be careful of what you're saying, because hey, ain't no do-overs on live, man.
Nope, it is live in a living color, and it's for the whole world to see. I'm really enjoying that, and you just actually reminded me something, Frank. Whenever they talk to someone who had a bad play, lately it's been either someone who fumbled, a quarterback, maybe a DB. Defensive linemen aren't getting those negative interviews, so I think you might be in the clear. Nobody wants to be the first defensive lineman interviewed after a bad play.
No, indeed, man. So you want to stay off of it for doing something bad. We only want positive plays.
Absolutely. Well, you guys beat LA, like I said last week. You got after the ball against them, really caused some backbreaking turnovers for them. What do you have to do defensively against Seattle to be successful in that environment? Because they had a pretty raucous crowd last week, and they're expecting more of the same against you guys.
Man, last weekend, I think it defined us as a team. Just kind of let guys know what we were. We had things go up and they went down, and they went up and they went down, but you never seen guys get rattled, and I think that kind of gelled us more. So, I think this going into this week, we know it's a short week. We had short time to prepare for it, but we understand what's on the line and what's at stake. And, this is a division game. So, you treat every game like a division game, but, this is one of the ones that count. So, we know the importance of this. So we got to go out there and we got to come to work, man. And that's what I feel, guys are going to do. And so, when we all out there playing fast and just, going, you see the results,
Going to be a really good contest. They have a pretty decent run game. You guys have been pretty stout so far, making big plays on defense. I cannot wait for this one on Saturday afternoon in Seattle. Dallas Renegades, Seattle Dragons. Man, you got to be enjoying it. Playing football, the football you've always known and loved, Frank. And here you are. Yeah. It's late February, but you're playing some football. The whole world's watching. Go out there, keep having fun. And I'm going to be waiting for your next on-field interview because you're one of my favorites already.
Oh, man, I appreciate it, man. And I'll be looking forward to getting some more,
All right, Frank, we appreciate it. Have fun this weekend, and we'll talk to you down the road.
All right, y'all have a good one. Thank you.
Thanks to the Dallas Renegades and Frank Alexander for helping us put that interview together right before the team took off for Seattle. They are going to be playing in front of a crowd, Bryant, that is supposed to be big again, close to 30,000 strong and super loud up there at CenturyLink.
A tough task for sure, but more of a tough task, I think, for the offense. I think Frank Alexander being on the defense side doesn't care about that noise and that atmosphere. Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun to shut that crowd up, I'm sure, is what his goal will be. But still some great insight, a lot of fun. Just one of the many characters that the XFL's building so far through 2 weeks of the season. I can't wait to see what characters come out in week 3 as well.
All right. Now let's say, that's a great segue because you bring up characters. I think our best character we have on the show, it's about time for him, for his bit now on the late Thursday evening edition of This is the XFL Show with spreads coming out. Vince always has to weigh in on his bets and the best bets. You know he has a lot to say about it, so he's going to kick us off here as we get into our game previews for week number 3 in this week's Hot Read.
Hey, football fans. This is Vince from This is the XFL Show. XFL week number 3 kicking off on Saturday, 11 a.m. Pacific time. Houston Roughnecks 6.5-point favorite on the highway against the Tampa Bay Vipers. The Vipers just don't look good right now. Seems like a small spread for a team struggling like that, but I can't get in front of this Houston Roughnecks train until the Vipers prove it to me. I'm not going to back them. I like the Roughnecks to cover that number. Second game on Saturday, 2 p.m. Pacific time. Maybe the 2 best rushing attacks in the league. Seattle Dragons getting 4 points at home against the Dallas Renegades. Brandon Silvers, he's really struggling throwing the ball for Seattle. But you could say the same thing for Dallas. I don't care if Hal Mummy's calling the plays or not. Landry Jones just does not look healthy. I think these 2 running games are really going to dominate things. I know Artis Payne looked excellent last week, but I think it's going to be a close game. I'll take the points at home with Seattle. If you're a totals player, take a look at this 43 number. I could see it going under there. Third game, this is on Sunday, noon Pacific time, and this line has gone up. St. Louis BattleHawks football finally returning to St. Louis. Big 10-point favorite at home against the struggling New York Guardians. To me, this just seems like too big of a line. I know a lot of people were probably fading the Guardians after their struggles last week, but St. Louis, they look like a smoke and mirrors team to me until they prove it. That screen pass offense they were running last week, Jordan Ta'amu getting his big plays off of that. I love this Guardians defense. I think this secondary is going to be able to cover these receivers. They're going to stack a lot of guys in the box. I'm not sure if they're going to win the game, but they're definitely going to keep it close. Definitely keep it under that 10 number. Final game of the weekend, 3 p.m. Pacific time. If Houston and Tampa wasn't best versus worse, then this definitely is. DC Defenders 8-point favorite on the road against the LA Wildcats. First game on the road for DC, back-to-back home games for LA. But I'll tell you something right now, LA, until they prove it to me, I can't get behind them. And DC just seems to be getting stronger and stronger. They're scoring in every phase of the game. I like them there. I'm going with the DC Defenders. And that's this week's picks. For the love of football, just go ahead and bet on it.
I don't know if I'm going to take Vince's advice on that St. Louis game, Bryant, but we'll pick that one in just a moment. It's Vince Calfo with his Week 3 picks against the spread. For all of you gambling, enjoying sports betting, the XFL, it's so fun to see that actually gets acknowledged in the game, isn't it? It's refreshing. And right here on This is the XFL Show. Now let's make our picks. Some of us might pick against the spread, but we will also pick winners. And I'm going to give you scores. Jake, I don't know what you're going to do. Bryant, I don't know what you're going to do. But let's talk about these games, shall we? And let's start with Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern on ABC. Yes, Houston 2-0, Tampa 0-2. Raymond James Stadium getting their first taste of XFL football. And it is a 6.5-point spread according to the DraftKings Sportsbook. The projected total in this one, according to the Action Network, is at about 45.2 points total. And the big thing to know in this one is Aaron Murray, all week long, has not practiced. He's DNP listed, Bryant. So who should Tampa Bay throw to the Wolves against this vicious Houston defensive line?
Well, whoever it is, just throw one of them and not both of them throughout the entire game. I think you're going to see Quentin Flowers ride the bench, and you're going to see Taylor Cornelius ride this team, hopefully into a victory. I don't see it happening, though. Nick Truesdale also has not practiced. That's their number one pick out of their skill position, their big tight end. So I want to pick Tampa Bay. I do, because I like what I've seen from them. I just don't know if they're going to have the tools. We talked about finishing. They're losing tools when it comes to trying to finish. They're not going to be able to do it. Houston riding a high. I think there was some worry with that lack of performance in the second half against the BattleHawks, but I think they're going to correct it. I don't think Tampa Bay has the tools to do what St. Louis did with that on the defensive side of the football. So I have Houston winning this game. I do have Tampa Bay scoring their first touchdown, though, and I will say that it's going to be 32-17, the Houston Roughnecks.
So you're saying whoever's going to be under center for Tampa Bay, even if they need to tag out, you're keeping them in all game?
Well, I mean, unless you no, hold on, because of what they were doing last week, where you were trading quarterbacks between downs.
It was definitely erratic last week.
Yeah, do not do that. Do not even do it within series. Either commit to one, and if you're going to keep them out. That's fine, but keep your next one in. Do not do this back and forth thing that they were trying to do last week in Seattle.
Key to victory for Tampa Bay, I mean, obviously has to be the running backs. We've talked about them, De'Veon Smith, Jacques Patrick. They're thumpers. They can control a game. They can get big chunks of yards. They can break tackles. Can they keep the time of possession way in the favor of Tampa Bay? It looked like a key to success for St. Louis, and it almost worked last week against Houston with the big play capability. But I don't think that is going to work, because even if you have the time of possession, even if you actually score a touchdown on offense in your Tampa Bay, I just feel like that Tampa Bay pass rush hasn't been there at all, and they're not getting after the quarterback. And with P.J. Walker having time and being able to create, Houston's going to have a whole lot of fun. I'm picking them 29-12, Jake.
First of all, let's talk about what do you think the house is going to be like here? Because I'm not really sensing a whole lot of hype for this home opener. I'm sure there's going to be people hissing in the stands, but I don't feel the same way as I do going into Seattle last week, going into St. Louis this week, or even at Audi Field whenever we were there for week one.
I will say, yeah, we're not hearing the social media hype at those levels for Tampa Bay, but you know, these are fans. This is a football town too, so we'll see what kind of pride they bring, what kind of crowd they bring, what kind of energy they bring, and if that actually helps the Vipers. That's something that we definitely are going to keep an eye on, Jake. And you know, that I'll say, at least if you go on Twitter, in certain segments of People Talking XFL Twitter or Reddit, there is a pretty strong Tampa Bay Viper social contingency. I'm interested to see if they show up at the stadium.
Yeah, I mean, because this is going to be, at least we got two home openers, both playing in big barns, places where NFL clubs have played. And I don't know if Tampa's going to. I have a hard time imagining them equaling what New York did up in MetLife Stadium, but that's really not what I'm here to talk about. You're asking me for my prediction. I think this is the lock game of the week. You know, if you had to go 100% all in, a confidence level of 11, I would put it on Houston in this one.
Oh my! I would not put this in. If we're doing confidence bets, this is
I would.
It's my biggest margin of victory, I think, but it's not my. It's not my number one. I mean, come on.
Well, that's a good tease for later, because I don't know what else it would be if it wasn't this.
Oh, come on. Okay, well, we'll get there. So those are all locked in, though. We're all taking Houston.
I just don't see a way for Tampa Bay to actually come out with the victory on this one. Good luck to them, but it's going to be hard for them to take on this high-powered offense and come out with the victory.
Tampa Bay, they just have to be – they can't make any mistakes in the red zone. And then even if you do that, you have to hold Houston and P.J. Walker to, I don't know, 15 points maybe.
We'll see what happens. That game, of course, is on ABC, 2 p.m. Eastern this Saturday. First game of the Week 3 slate. Make sure you watch that. If for the very least, I'll give you two things to watch. You get to watch P.J. Walker, and I think the thrill of seeing if the Vipers actually score an offensive touchdown, worth the watch alone. But we'll see. Who knows? Could end up being a good game in Tampa Bay. Now, we take it to Game 2 on Saturday. And we're going to be watching these games, Bryant. Don't forget, we're going to be in St. Louis amongst BattleHawks fans watching these games. We're going to be there for that first game, 1 p.m. local time in St. Louis at Westport Social. That's 910 Westport Plaza Drive. We'll be having an XFL watch party, as we mentioned at the top of the show. Prizes, recording the podcast, cacawing, enjoying Mardi Gras, enjoying XFL football, and watching P.J. Walker, and then watching a St. Louis BattleHawk foe that they defeated. Dallas Renegades, 1-1 at Seattle, also 1-1. +5 in this one for Seattle. At home underdogs at CenturyLink Field, where they get a huge crowd Saturday at 5 p.m. Eastern on Fox. Projected total for this one, according to the Action Network, is 43.5. And this is going to be fun because Vince has been saying, oh, Landry Jones looks beat up, looks banged up, looks hurt. Bob Stoops said he loved what he saw out of Landry Jones and kind of convinced me hearing him talk.
I think we're just scratching the surface of what we're capable of.
Talking about scratching the surface there and Landry Jones really going out there and executing and have on a bad day, on a day where he first starts playing football after a couple of years just being absolutely ice cold, Jake, not even really practicing that week, Stoops mentioned. And that got me to thinking, man, maybe he's right. Maybe Landry Jones is just on another level of quarterback compared to everyone else in this league, like Cardale Jones, like P.J. Walker is showing right now as well. I'm expecting Landry Jones to come out firing in this one, but that Seattle crowd is no joke, and that defense is no joke either, Bryant.
Yeah, but Seattle has not looked like a good team the first 2 weeks of the season. I know they pulled out a victory last week, but again, you look at their opponent, Tampa Bay Vipers. Nothing impressed me for Seattle really last week. I think they didn't lose the game more than they won the game last week. Dallas, on the other hand, has looked better. Bob Stoops has convinced me as well. This is a pretty good team. Hal Mummy and his beach towel out there.
Get on the ball. Don't let him rest. Get on the ball.
He's going to get those Seattle defenders gassed. I think it'll be a great game in terms of closeness. I think Dallas is meant to pretty much play a close game the entire season. But against Seattle, Brandon Silvers, a lot of question marks there on the offensive side of the football. So I'll take Dallas 20-15.
You gotta be kidding me.
I think Seattle, they really could have been 2-0. I mean, one series in that DC game we were at, it's not like that was a blowout or anything. I have some more confidence that in Seattle than you do, but I think this is the toughest game of the week to pick. Landry Jones, he had, I would say, a good bit of rust. I think he would admit that to you, and he did on some of those sideline interviews, saying that he's going to play better, especially in that in the first half last week. He got better in the second half, and talking about practice, he had all week to practice. His coach likes what he sees. He's confident in him. He's sticking up for him. So I expect it to be a good game, a close one, but I'm going to edge it out to I'm going to say Seattle at home in this one.
Wow.
Oh, my gosh.
Seattle Dragons at home, very tough, I feel, too, Jake. But, like I said, I think Landry Jones is going to look better this week than he did last week. I think Silver's inconsistency, it's going to be tough to keep up with. I think Dallas is an inevitability on offense. They will break through eventually. They're going to be going fast, and they're going to be doing it again and again and again. And Seattle might get some big plays on defense, but Dallas will get theirs offensively. I truly believe that under Mummy. And then for Seattle, it's all about equaling big plays. Reynolds, Prohl, maybe Jaquan Gardner on a home run, big chunky run or something. I don't know, but Seattle's going to have to find something. I don't think they're going to have consistency, so they're going to have to find the big plays in the right timing with those big plays to pull it out. I don't think that happens. So I'm going to go with the consistent offense here. Go with the Dallas Renegades. Consistent. They had one good game, but I think it's coming. Consistency. Dallas Renegades 24-23 in a close one in Seattle. Can't wait to hear that crowd, though, on Fox. And, of course, that is at 5 p.m. Eastern And again, Bryant, watching that one at Westport Social in St. Louis, hearing the BattleHawks fans caca talking about how they beat those Dallas Renegades already. We'll see what the Renegades do, though, when they take on the Dragons. 2 1-1 teams. Very important game there in the XFL West. Over to the XFL East, though, where 2 1-1 teams, a lot on the line, Jake. One team loses this, and their chances of going to the playoffs severely diminish. The other team wins it, and their chances go up significantly. And St. Louis is a 10-point favorite at home against the fellow 1-1 team, the Dome at America Center, the Battle Dome, Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. That's 2 p.m. local time. Bryant and I will be in that Battle Dome. Projected totals at 41.2 according to the Action Network. St. Louis averaging in 2 games, Jake. This is an interesting stat you might want to chew on. 200 more yards total offense than the New York Guardians do on offense. Significantly more productive than what Matt McGloin, Kevin Gilbride, that whole offense is putting together.
Well, I do expect New York to at least score points this week, which is going to keep it a lot closer than last week. But going into that Battle Dome, and earlier in the show, you asked me to pick who my player of the week for week 3 was going to be. I picked Tomu, so I got to stay strong with myself here and say St. Louis BattleHawks going to improve to 2-1. New York's definitely going to look better than they did last week, but I think it's going to be rough coming back home to MetLife for week 4.
Don't forget, though, the Guardians had an awful week last week, but in 2 weeks.
They did, and that's what's fresh in everybody's mind.
Yeah, but in 2 weeks, only 3 touchdowns allowed by that defense, all of them in one game. But still, they showed a lot of promise in week 1, and Vince alluded to that earlier when we heard his picks, Bryant. So can they rattle Jordan Ta'amu enough and maybe force some turnovers, quiet the Battle Dome?
I don't know what it's going to take to quiet that Battle Dome, Alan. I mean, we are traveling, both of us, pretty much halfway across the country to this game because of the hype level that the fans are bringing to the Battle Dome. I don't know what the short of the BattleHawks performing the way the Guardians did last week, I don't see how this Battle Dome is quiet enough for the Guardians to really make a splash or do anything to silence them. I think St. Louis is going to have a lot behind him. I think New York still has a little bit of those jitters. Matt McGloin, we're not going to get the content that we got last week from him. I guarantee that. But at the same time, he's going to be on a short lease. They're going to be willing to put Marquise Williams in there, maybe even Luis Perez if they have to get some changes, some differences between what happened this week and what happened last week. So I'm still picking the BattleHawks. I think this 10 points is probably around what I'm thinking as well. I'll go St. Louis over New York, 33-18.
The only negative about being in the Battle Dome for you and I, Bryant, is the fact that we don't get to see until afterwards, and we watch the replay, when the camera goes up to Matt McGloin when he inevitably throws a pick to Kenny Robinson or Terrence Garvin or someone. You know, like what is it? What are we going to get, like a Ryan Leaf moment on the sidelines? Or are we going to get a quarterback absolutely losing it? What will happen? Will he keep his cool? That should be fascinating to see if he even gets interviewed or what happens there. We'll see what happens with Matt McGloin in this one. I don't think it's going to be pretty for him. I think it all rests on that New York defense getting after Jordan Ta'amu. If they can, it's going to be guys like Bunmi Rotimi, and he'll be lining up against, I think, some tackles who need to improve a little bit in terms of keeping Jordan Ta'amu, safe and not have to scramble as much. Marcus McCants, Jake Campos for the BattleHawks. I think the home atmosphere, the home cooking might help with that. So that's why I'm picking the BattleHawks. This is my lock of the week, Jake. This is absolutely in the bag at the Battle Dome. And I'm picking St. Louis to beat New York 28-11. And man, those cacas are going to be echoing in the Battle Dome from week 3 on through the entire season, because St. Louis once again has pro football. It's a football town, and it's coming back this Sunday, and it will be on ESPN. It will be at 3 p.m. Eastern, and I just can't wait for everybody to be watching this game, seeing the 28,000 plus strong going absolutely berserk, cacaing, screaming for this team. It is going to be electric to be at this game, to watch it on TV, Jake. I cannot wait.
So you're saying they're going to shake the arches?
They're going to shake the arches. Yes, the gateway to the West is going to be shaken from what's going on in the Battle Dome. Yeah, 1-1 teams too. Jake, we talked about this before we started recording. The team that loses this falls back a whole lot percentage-wise, according to some mathematics we saw out there.
They do, and it to me, I mean, if New York loses, I can see that, but if St. Louis loses, it seems like they should still be in it, even though the records would be the same. But I think New York is definitely the more desperate team in this one, but I don't think any of us picked them.
We did not, and you know what? New York does, at least to their credit, have a win over an XFL East opponent. This is not only St. Louis's first game at home, but their first game against the division opponent, and that will determine a whole lot when it comes to playoffs. It is week 3. I know only week 3, but in a 10-week season, these kind of games are absolutely pivotal. So a lot riding on the line in this home opener, and it will be a really great time. Cannot wait. And, of course, that Saturday, we're going to be at Westport Social, like we said. But Sunday, look for Bryant and I. We're going to be the handsome guy and Bryant walking around the Battle Dome on the outside, looking for your tailgates, looking to get you up on social media. We're going to actually interview some fans, Bryant, and get the pulse of St. Louis as a football town to maybe put some special content together for the podcast feed.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun out there. We're going to be kind of in St. Louis. Basically, we're in St. Louis to show that this is a football town, that the fans are hyped and excited for the XFL for football to return as well. That's why we're there. So look out for us. We're going to be rolling through tailgates, rolling through the crowds, through the stands, through to the game. We're going to be everywhere. It's going to be a lot of fun. So make sure if you see me, say hi to me and just kind of ignore Alan, because he's just not a lot of fun to actually talk to outside of this show. So, but we'll be there all weekend long.
Well, I will prove that wrong, baby. You just watch, BattleHawks fans. You come find us, or we'll come find you. We're going to meet at the Battle Dome, and we're going to have a hell of a time. Can't wait to see you all there this Sunday. Also on Sunday, Jake, final game, a 2-0 versus an 0-2. DC at LA. Defenders are 8.5-point favorites at Dignity Health Sports Park, 6 p.m. on FS1. We alluded to this game a little bit earlier. Projected total 43.7 according to the Action Network. Cardale Jones versus Josh Johnson. We alluded to this. Josh Johnson, I think, a very different quarterback matchup from what the DC Defenders have seen so far, Jake, and I think it could be a problem for Pep Hamilton's defense.
Well, last week I did apologize to Bryant, to Coach Moss, and some other individuals. This week, I would like to personally apologize to the entire town of Los Angeles, because it's not going to go good in this one either. Cardale Jones graded as the best quarterback by Pro Football Focus in each of the first 2 weeks. You might as well make it 3 after this game here. LA's, they're going to put points on the board, but it's not going to be enough. DC's at least going to score one special teams or defensive touchdown in this one. Just too much. I see a 3-0 record for the Defenders at the end of this one.
I'm not as confident as you, Jake, but I'm going to pick DC to win 23-20. I think this is the best quarterback they've faced so far, so this is going to be really a game that's going to go down to the wire for me, for DC. Their defense they've made big plays for sure, but some of those throws, Bryant, weren't they gifts? I mean, just absolutely gifts thrown right to defenders, and they were able to take it back for touchdowns or for great field position. I mean, they've been fortunate, but they've capitalized, and they've forced a lot of turnovers for sure. But I have a feeling this is an LA team that's like determined to be disciplined this week, because they have not been in 2 weeks.
Alan, you're going to have to help me out on this, because I've mentioned, like I said many times on this show, is that I am an expert at talking about a football league that is going into a season, not actually going and talking about a football team during a season. When week 2 ended, I looked at the schedule, see what was going on. I kind of thought about everything, and I had this feeling, this just kind of in my gut, that LA had a chance to win this game. I don't know why. It just kind of hit me. And then I started really paying attention to what could happen in this football game. What has DC done? What has LA done? What has DC's done to be so successful? Jake, you mentioned that defensive touchdown. They've been giving gifts. Alan, you just said it too. Those throws by some of these quarterbacks have not been good. Brandon Silvers, Matt McGloin, those were not great throws. And what I saw from last week from Josh Johnson were not those types of throws. Yes, he wasn't very accurate, but he wasn't throwing it into coverage. He wasn't overthrowing his receivers with a safety behind him. Those types of mistakes I didn't see from Josh Johnson. So I don't see how the DC defenders capitalize on that. And then I also talk about the defensive side of the football on the Wildcat side and how good they've been and how close they've been to getting to that quarterback. And you have some big fellows on that defensive line. You know, you have Sean Oakman, you have Boogie Roberts. These guys can take Cardell down by themselves. Cardell's a big guy. That's kind of been his benefit so far, is that he can't be taken down. I see the Wildcats getting after him and being able to take him down so he can't just scramble out of that and make a completion. The other side too that I see is that in that week 1 game for the defenders, they allowed Silvers to throw 3 touchdowns, 2 of them to Austin Proles. They're not going to see a better combination than Josh Johnson and Nelson Spruce this season. I want to do it, Alan, and I had that feeling at the very beginning of the week. I still have it now. The more I look at it, I can make that prediction. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to say LA wins this football game. They're going to win it 30-25. LA takes this one. I see enough reasons why LA can pull this one out.
I will be coaching like a crazy man.
There he is. The first time you picked your favorite team to win a game, Bryant. LA win it with the upset.
Yeah, so right. I don't want it to be like a favoritism because I have picked against them these first 2 weeks. I definitely see them covering. LA is a better team than what that record shows. DC, though I think they're a great football team, I think the ways and the reasons they've won these past 2 games, LA is not going to give them those opportunities. I don't see the easy turnover. They got to hold on to that football. If they have 2 fumbles in the red zone again, you might never see Winston Moss run the ball again this season. So they really got to tighten that up. But I think there's an opportunity there for LA to come out with the victory.
Well, I hope you're right, because I want to see LA in the winners column. I want to see LA contending. I think they're an entertaining team, and I want Winston Moss to have a smile on his face at the post-game press conference. We'll see. DC and LA will be closing up week 3. That game is on Sunday, 6 p.m. on FS1. Can LA get their first win, or will the defenders continue to roll and go 3-0? And if you go by Jake and my picks, Bryant, that leaves us at the end of the week 3. Houston, DC still undefeated, Tampa and LA still winless, and the middle of the pack. You got a clear-cut kind of division then after week 3. Already, I think that would be pretty quick in terms of separating themselves. But who knows? Maybe all the waters could be muddied in week 3. This is kind of one of the few turning points we'll have throughout the season. Going to be fun to watch it all, and we'll be covering it all. Game recaps, mini-sodes will be coming at you after each and every single one of these games. That does it for another edition of This is the XFL Show. Another one of these fun game previews episodes. Jake, what do you like better, the game previews or the weekend recaps?
I think I like the game previews because somebody's going to be wrong, and then we get the grill next week. And hopefully it's not me.
Yeah, I like these. I like these, but then I have to put myself out there with these picks. I much prefer the recaps because then we get to hear all the sounds from the weekend. That's my favorite part. But this was a lot of fun today for sure.
Alan, how'd you do last week? Because I know week 1 you did 4-0. How'd you do last week?
You're making me pull that up. I went 0-1. I went 1-1. I went 2-1. I went 2-2 last week. In terms of winners against the spread, don't ask me.
I went 4-0 last week, so that's pretty good. That's a lot of fun to pick these games and to see what you can do and what you can't do. I think that's part of the enjoyment of being on this side of the microphone and not actually being on the field, right?
Yes.
You don't have to worry about actually playing the games. You just kind of get to predict them, so it's a lot of fun. But we're going to be here every single week, Alan. Like we said many times, we're going to be in St. Louis all weekend long. So join us this Saturday to watch the Tampa Bay Vipers host the Houston Roughnecks live from Westport Social in St. Louis. We're going to have some cool giveaways, a lot of fun, maybe get on the podcast. We're going to record our post games from there as well. So join us there. Remember, if you're listening to us now for the first time, subscribe. Hit that subscribe button on your podcast application and tell your friends about us. Also, you can listen to us every single week at XFL.com or on YouTube at youtube.com/XFL, the official YouTube channel of the XFL.
We're everywhere. And don't forget that XFL fan line, 724-565-4XFL. Jake, you won't be in St. Louis with us this weekend, but I know you'll be watching all the games on TV. Enjoy yourself from the comfort of your home.
Yeah, I will. You guys behave in St. Louis. Bryant, remember, don't kiss the baby unless it's not yours. I know you're going to be out there campaigning for God knows what.
Okay, we're going to have to talk about that one off the air. Alan, can I say one more thing before we go? Thanks to the coach. We had him on earlier this week. Make sure you check out his pregame show on Saturday and Sunday on the XFL's YouTube as well. And Alan, correct me if I'm wrong, but he's going to be a staple on this show going forward after every single week.
Oh, yeah. We're going to have Jonathan Coachman on this program for more of that from last episode. We had a great football chat with him, so the coach will be joining us on the Tuesday morning edition to discuss Week 3. So look for that recap with the coach. Look for the XFL pregame with the coach and Elise Ashton on XFL YouTube and all across the social platforms. And, hey, BattleHawks fans, maybe look for yourselves on some of that, because if you're hanging out with us, you might get caught up in all the craziness. Cameras are going to be all over, microphones. You could be a part of all the fun that we're going to be having, and we cannot wait to see you. I am so hyped up. Saturday at Westport Social to watch the Saturday games, and then Sunday at the Battle Dome, going around the dome and then getting inside the dome to hear the decibels destroy my eardrums. I am ready to caca for the home opener for the St. Louis BattleHawks in Week 3. It is going to be a special weekend, football fans. Let's get it. Here we go. For Jake, for Bryant, I'm Alan. Thanks to Pep Hamilton and Frank Alexander for being our guests today. This is the XFL Show. Remember, they're listening.